Now, I don't know that I've ever watched an episode of anything in my entire life that left me as unsure what to think of it as this finale of the Ahsoka series just did. I mean, on the one hand, the first two-thirds of the episode was bad, and I mean pretty bad all around other than a few good things here and there, which we will get to soon enough, trust me. But on the other hand, there was the last roughly 10 minutes or so that was certainly interesting. That certainly made me say, now that's potentially very cool. It's just a shame that the path we took to get there had been so rough, because I want to be excited for all this. I want to be excited for all the implications at the end of the episode and for all the possibilities in the second season, as well as for what this means for the Mandoverse era of Star Wars overall. And so, skipping any further preamble, let's jump right into the episode with the name of it, The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord, which of course is taken from the classic C.S. Lewis novel The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which makes sense since those books, the Chronicles of Narnia, introduced something called the Wood Between the Worlds, a place of magical pools that, if you had a magical ring, it allowed you to travel between worlds such as Earth, Narnia, and others. And that, of course, is very similar to the World Between Worlds we've now seen a few times in Star Wars, with Dave Filoni even acknowledging the similarities between the two, and that it seems like he may not be done exploring all that given what else we saw at the end of the episode, that being huge statues of the Mortis gods. And they, of course, have known connections to the World Between Worlds, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, and so let's go back to the beginning, where Enoch, who has done virtually nothing in the series but update Thrawn from time to time, well, he lets him know they are tracking the Jedi ship, and Thrawn then sends out 2 fighters after the ship. Just 2 of them, because apparently he hadn't noticed that for a large portion of the battle in the previous episode, 3 fighters had been chasing after the ship and were completely unable to scratch it, much less take it out of commission. Now sure, those weren't TIE fighters, but something tells me the outcome wouldn't have been much different had they been TIE fighters. In other words, I'm not so sure what the point is in sending out just 2 TIE fighters, especially when Thrawn acknowledges that he has fallen victim to the heroics of a single Jedi before, no doubt referencing Ezra's sacrifice at the end of Rebels, and how that got him exiled to this other galaxy in the first place. And now there's essentially 3 of them, with one being the apprentice of Anakin Skywalker, who Thrawn knows and has admitted is unpredictable and dangerous. So you would almost think Thrawn would do whatever he had to do to stop them, meaning he'd launch even more fighters, especially given he seemed more than willing to sacrifice whatever resources were required simply to get back to the other galaxy. That is his one and only main goal, and he certainly didn't have any problem sacrificing stormtroopers either in the previous episode or this one, so why not a few extra TIE fighters as well? Along with this then, along with Thrawn saying he understands the threat of even one Jedi, it makes me wonder more than ever what the last 10 years have looked like. Did Thrawn try to take out Ezra at some point, eliminating the threat of a single Jedi? Or hadn't he? And if so, why, with Night Sister magic and still a good share of resources at his disposal, was he unable to eliminate him? This is Thrawn we're talking about, right? Or at least Thrawn in name. He was unable to take out one Jedi in all that time and secure smooth operations for his plan? And the plan for our heroes is indeed to stop Thrawn. Ezra seems quite eager to do so when we switch over to them and to our heroes overall after the Night Sister ceremony that sees Morgan Elsbeth get a promotion to Great Mother, it seems, or imbued with magic, or gets it unlocked, whatever the case may exactly be here, which then explains why we haven't seen her using magic much before. Though not sure how she apparently created Marok with limited magic, but let's not worry about any of that, I guess. Either way, the ceremony was cool enough, and she was even presented with the Sword of Talzin, which makes me wonder if Talzin is more of a title than a name of a person, given we saw Mother Talzin in the Clone Wars, right? Either that, or somehow these great mothers have her sword here in this other galaxy, or were able to conjure it up from the other one, or teleport it across time and space like Rey and Kylo with their dyad powers, or it's just a brand new sword they made and they call it the Talzin sword, because again, Mother Talzin is just the name of the leader of the clan of Night Sisters in the other galaxy. But anyway, let's not worry about all that, just like the show didn't worry about Sabine telling Ezra the truth. It just completely glossed over all of it, which is curious given how, again, eager Ezra is to stop Thrawn. Which makes sense considering how much he'd already given up to stop Thrawn, or gave up the first time around to stop him. He gave up 10 years of his life to bring Thrawn to this other galaxy along with him. Which is why he might just be a tad bit upset at Sabine for possibly giving Thrawn a means by which to get home. She was the one who gave Balin the map after all, instead of destroying it and then stranding Thrawn here in this other galaxy forever. But nope, all that is forgiven or was never an issue in the first place. We don't know either way because the show didn't feel we needed to see that. But what we did need to see was Ezra making a new lightsaber. I mean, I don't think it was a bad scene or anything. I like that Huyang was once again great in it, and we get a nice little nod to Kanan and the saber he once made and all that. But I was kind of under the impression Ezra didn't need a lightsaber anymore, that he trained in or created some sort of new martial arts force form. But nope, he just makes a new one and lets Sabine keep his old one because why not? And speaking of this scene, it's here that we learn that the Night of 1,000 Tears happened at the end of the war, and apparently after Ahsoka had started to train Sabine, that Ahsoka feared she was training for the wrong reasons, or Sabine was training for the wrong reasons, and that's why she walked away. And it's kind of curious that this happened at the end of the war, that the destruction of Mandalore took place at the end. Was it part of Operation Cinder, perhaps? Which was Palpatine's way of saying, if I can't have the galaxy, no one can. And he had a bunch of planets basically destroyed. Either way, I'm more curious than ever about how or when Sabine actually started her training, but I don't really think we're ever going to get the answer to that. Another thing I really questioned in this episode was, why are they still with the crab people? I mean, they're leaving one way or another, right? So them sticking around another day to, I guess, protect them. And sure, they could offer protection should more nomads show up for the day, I suppose. But if Thrawn comes for them, if he comes for our heroes, which he of course will and does, the crab people, will only be in danger because they stuck around. Whereas if our heroes had left them already, Thrawn had zero reason whatsoever to care about the crab people at all. Zero. Hell, he probably didn't even know who or what the crab people really were, or care. In other words, again, sticking around only puts the crab people in danger, or should I say gives the show a reason for the ship to be almost literally a sitting duck for the TIE fighters to hit, instead of potentially hidden somewhere while they come up with a plan of attack against Thrawn. But it's as if they know somehow that they have time, and that, sure enough, they will arrive at just the right time for him to barely get away in the end. Which is just really, really frustrating to watch. It's frustrating to see them, our heroes, just babysitting crab people for no reason, when they should immediately be trying to stop Thrawn. The show should be giving us some sense of urgency at this point. And no, I'm not suggesting they go in there blindly. They, of course, should make a battle plan against Grand Admiral Thrawn, but they ultimately don't even do that anyway. Ahsoka literally says they'll just go in the front door at one point, which sure, you could argue is an Anakin-like plan that she's taking after her master, if you will. But you'd still think they'd be discussing some sort of strategy while they go there, especially Sabine, who's supposed to be the smart one. Though, then again, I don't know if Sabine is really the smart one after using the ship itself to destroy the two TIE fighters, and then after, yeah, it does sustain some damage from that. It crashes into the ground. But don't worry, she is absolutely fine after that. Nothing can hurt any of our heroes. Literally nothing, it seems, which is also oh so frustrating. I mean, can we at least get a scratch somewhere on Sabine after that? Instead of her just casually walking away from the crash. And the way she walked, I half expected that classic "it blows up in the background as she coolly walks away" thing. But if that had happened, it may have been slightly more difficult for them, for Huyang and the crab people, to put the ship back together again in a couple hours, so that they could be there at just the right moment to save Sabine and Ahsoka in the end. And I say may have been because certainly they would have pulled it off somehow still. I mean, they already repaired it enough to just fly in a few hours after it crashed into two fighters and then into the ground. And they did it all with, as far as we know, no sort of spare parts, other than, sure, what the crab people may have had on their floating mobile homes. Because I'm sure it's all compatible, not that being from different galaxies might make any kind of difference, that they might have different parts. I mean, it's not like we've ever seen ships need specific parts before, right?
I need parts for a J-Type 327 Nubian.
But anyway, let's move on to the attack by our heroes, where we learn from Ezra right before they just head for the front door that Thrawn woke up the Night Sisters, which seems to confirm what I think we all suspect, that in the cargo that Thrawn has loaded onto his ship are sleeping Night Sisters, or dead ones waiting to be resurrected or something, who knows, but probably just sleeping. That'd be my guess. Thrawn then tells everyone to prepare for a ground assault and waits until the heroes are literally right under the ship to open fire on them, for some reason letting them cover miles of completely open ground unhindered, without sending out more TIE fighters or opening fire with the Star Destroyer and hoping to get them in all that time it'll take them to get there on Wolf back. However, if you would have killed them that way, and Jedi or not, somebody is getting a lucky shot in at some point and hitting the approaching Jedi. But if you had killed them that way, we wouldn't be able to see the Night Troopers in action against our 3 lightsaber-wielding Jedi. We wouldn't get our undead stormtroopers who pop back up and fight again and again, because at no point did any of the lightsabers they have actually sever off an appendage of any kind. So they could just keep getting back up time and time again, nor did our heroes after they realized the dead were rising again. They didn't chop off either legs or arms with their lightsabers to slow them down or neutralize them altogether perhaps, even though it theoretically can be done, like the proverbial hot knife cutting through butter. Stormtrooper armor isn't exactly Beskar, is it? It should be able to slice through, as should dead rotting flesh or just human normal flesh. And I think we now know that zombie movies aren't a big hit in the Star Wars galaxy because not a single one of them thought to cut off a head to stop them, until much, much later on, that is, when it would be more dramatic to have happen. And yes, I certainly get it. You don't want to show too much dismemberment, too many arms and legs or heads getting lopped off. Not like we ever see anything like that in the movies happening to Skywalkers or anything. Not like this franchise has a thing with dismemberment. But seriously, I get you don't want to show a bunch of Jedi decapitating a room full of undead stormtroopers, but come on, none of them thought to do something like that, and no limbs even came off by chance with lightsabers being swung around? I mean, they really are making these things worthless, aren't they? It's no wonder Ezra didn't want his back. He tried to make one that actually would do something, I guess. Anyway, at least during all this we get some good quips between Ezra and Sabine, making it all feel very much like an episode of Rebels. We then see Thrawn tell Morgan she's got to stay behind as a distraction for the glory of the Empire, which Thrawn mentions a lot in this episode. That he seems to be all for the Empire instead of someone who wanted to use it to save his own people, essentially. And thus, any hope I had that what they're doing with him will have anything to do with the new canon books written by Timothy Zahn has now all but faded, though of course he could just be saying all this as a means by which to manipulate Morgan, that he knows that's what she and his troops want to hear from him, and he's not really all for the Empire, he's just saying it. Whatever the case may be with that, we get our big climactic fights, those being between upgraded Morgan Elsbeth versus Ahsoka the White, which Ahsoka wins, no surprise, or eventually wins. She does struggle with this one. And I really feel like Morgan's character arc in this was really all just about existing or being here just to die to Ahsoka, just so the good guys could do something or kill someone of some supposed importance in the end to not be a total defeat, if you will. The other big epic encounter is Sabine and Ezra versus 2 undead death troopers, and during it we get that moment we all knew was coming eventually, that being Sabine finally using the Force by pulling her lightsaber to her and igniting it through the head of the death trooper, followed soon after by Ezra decapitating the one he was fighting, and I guess better late than never on figuring out what their weakness was. Moving on, it just so happens that Thrawn's ship has just started leaving and he's going to get away, but Sabine, now having unlocked Force Push and Pull on her skill tree, is confident enough after using it one time to help push Ezra onto the Star Destroyer, which he, Ezra, of course, goes along with because who is he to ever question anything Sabine has done or could do? Sure enough, though, it ends up successful and Ezra ends up on the Star Destroyer, but Sabine stays behind to help Ahsoka, and so this time, like poetry, one could say, it's Ezra who gets to go home while the others have to stay behind, though yeah, last time it was them getting to stay home and Ezra going, but you see how it rhymes. And honestly, this is where the episode actually starts to get kinda good, after a very rough opening 2/3 or so where, if I'm being blunt about it, virtually nothing had made much sense at all, least of all the actions of Grand Admiral Thrawn. But now finally things start to get good, not perfect, there's still a few things that are questionable, but by and large it does get interesting here. I like that Thrawn tells Ahsoka that she knew his master, which was something that comes from the books. We do know Thrawn met both Anakin and, of course, Vader and put it together who really was who. I like that he tries to imply she could fall to the dark side one day too because of her master, which we kind of saw her try to resolve earlier in the season. Even though that's probably a bit of a stretch for Thrawn to assume, especially given how little he understands about the Force. Still a decent parting shot from Thrawn, or right before he heads home with Ezra on his ship, leaving Ahsoka and Sabine behind. Next, we then see them just kind of go back to the crab people. Sabine and Ahsoka just go back to the crab people, seemingly resigned to their fate for now. And yeah, I guess they don't have many options, but it does seem a bit strange that it feels like they're just kind of shrugging their shoulders and going back to the crab people. Though I don't know what else you would do with them at this point or how else you kind of end their story for now other than that. But theirs was not the only ending we got, or maybe I should say new beginning, after going the whole episode wondering if we would get anything from Baylan and Shin, who have really stole the show and been perhaps the most interesting aspect of the series. We get Shin apparently about to take over one of these nomadic tribes because she can, I guess, because she decided not to go with the Empire for reasons. Probably so she can be in Season 2. We then get the most interesting moment of the entire episode, if not the whole damn series. We finally get a clue, or perhaps a bit more than a clue, about what Baylan is here for, what he's been sensing, when we see a Lord of the Rings-esque looking set of statues of the father, son, and daughter from Mortis. And the father seems to be pointing at something in the distance, some sort of light or beacon going off. And though there will be plenty of time for speculation on all this, too much given how crazy theories can sometimes get, it does seem like Abeloth is actually on the table here, that it could possibly be her, which brings a whole new power level to play in Star Wars. But anyway, leaving that speculation alone for now, again, plenty of time for it later. We also briefly did see Morai, that's the convor or bird-like creature that's been following Ahsoka since her experience on Mortis, where the daughter who had the same colors as Morai, and is no doubt some type of manifestation of her, gave her life to save Ahsoka. We then go back to the main Star Wars galaxy and see Thrawn's ship pull up on Dathomir, no doubt to awaken the cargo to be used to help the remnants of the Empire take over the galaxy, before then a pretty good and emotional moment of Ezra making his way back to the New Republic fleet and seeing Hera, and we'll just leave alone how did he hide from Thrawn the whole time back other than being in Stormtrooper armor, which is, not exactly a new thing to him, it is kind of a callback, and also how he stole the ship and just kind of got away. And the final scene or moment of the show is then the Force ghost of Anakin kind of looking on, which, yeah, it's great seeing him once again, and I do wonder if that means we should expect more of him next season. Assuming there is a next season, that's all on Disney at this point and how well the show did or didn't do. But anyway, we see Anakin for like the third or fourth time in this, and I wonder what part, if any, he will indeed play in this series going forward, as we deal with more Mortis and maybe the world between worlds and all of that sort of thing. Which he also has a connection to. He was certainly in the Mortis arc as well. And so, all in all, I would say that yes, this episode not exactly answered all of our questions. In fact, it downright ignored some things, like Sabine and Ezra's big talk. And all it did with others is kind of offer us a gigantic tease, looking at you, Baylan, and the Mortis stuff. But it did at least address most things, I guess, though not always in the best possible way. I think Thrawn in this is not Thrawn, or not the Thrawn we were hoping for. If he truly is going to be the mastermind that leads the Remnant to some sort of victory over the New Republic, I really, really hope Timothy Zahn is brought in to help write him. He is absolutely needed to add another level to this character that I am very sorry to say Dave Filoni can't, or at least hasn't, delivered on yet. This wasn't Thrawn winning because he's an absolute genius. This was Thrawn winning because that's what Filoni wanted and needed him to do. But anyway, as I said, there is going to be plenty of time for speculation and to dig into the finer details of both this episode and the season itself in videos to come. So I will close this out by echoing what I've been saying pretty much all season long. This has been, for the most part, enjoyable, and this episode was no different, though I think of all the episodes, this was perhaps the worst when it comes to just believability, when it comes to the actions of some of the characters. But overall, I have liked the series despite itself, despite not being written anywhere near as good as it could have and really should have been. There was something here to work with, something that could have been really, really good, if not great, especially given some of the places we seem to be going, some of the things we ended up with or ended off at, especially when it comes to Baylan Skull, I'd say. But just the whole execution to get us here was kind of rough, to say the least, and holds this back from being something truly special. Well, that's all I got for you this time. Now it's your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you thought about this finale. Did it work for you? Did you love it and think it was great? Or did you find some issues with it or think it was downright bad? Whatever the case may be, leave your comments below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.